Hello everyone and welcome to a scrapbook layout share. I'm going to bring in some cards as well that I've made, and I'm also going to be using some masks from the Layers of Beauty. Now I mainly call them stencils, but I think these are going to team really well with the Remember This Moment Memories and More card pack. Now quite some time ago, with close to my heart, we used to have some little pocket cards, and I did a bit of a series on how to open up the packs, sort them all out and make them into scrapbook layouts on a 12 by 12 format rather than using them as intended in actual pocket pages. And close to my heart used to have 12 by 12 pocket pages or pocket memory protectors where you could just pop in the pocket cards and do a layout really quickly and really easily. And they were all in 6 by 4 and 4 by 3 formats. Stampin' Up! Have the same sort of thing with their Memories and More packs. It's just called a little bit different. So Memories and More cards are all that I've used on this layout, apart from the 12 by 12 piece of Garden Green. In this case, I've used the lighter side, which is a two-tone cardstock. So I like to use these pocket cards to create 12 by 12 layouts. But you could also do this for 6 by 8 or any other format that you're using. Stampin' Up! Actually have a 6 by 8 album, and the memory protectors for that are a lot of different pocket pages with different formats to use these 3 by 4 and 6 by 4 cards. You can see what I've got in front of me here. I've just simply put the 6 by 4, this yellow tone here, I think it's Cajun Craze. I'm just going to look at the packaging, and you get quite a few cards in the actual package. I've only kept this little bit. I have split these up, and I've only used half a pack of these of what I'm going to show you today. And in this particular pack, you get 6 of each design. So I've been working with half a pack. I've used these 3 yellow ones here. I'm just going to lift this card up so that you can see. It's been adhered for a little while, so hopefully I can do this. But you can see that the card here has an actual sentiment on there. When we have each other, we have everything. Now, what you could do is cut that out with a die and then use that on this actual layout here. But I have put another pocket card over the top of this because my title for this page is actually on this 4 by 3 card, which says Remember This Moment. And then I have done the same with the pocket card, covering up that little sentiment part that's there. And in this instance, it's a photo mat that is covering that up. And I am going to bring in some more decorations, hence that stamp set that I showed you before, the Layers of Beauty. I want to use the masks or the stencils in this and do a little bit of blending with you to show you how easy this is to use to create some gorgeous layered pieces. This piece here is all ink blended with the stencils. It's not using the stamp set at all, and you can purchase the masks just on their own, but this does come in a bundle. So there are 5 masks in total. I'm going to show you how these work. Then there are the dies, so you can see I've used the die here to cut this piece out. But there's also a stamp set as well, but all items are available to purchase individually. You don't have to get the whole lot. And honestly, if you love the look of this, because there is no outline to this, it's quite soft and beautiful, you can just purchase the masks, which are not such bad price point. But all of this together does come as a bundle. And I'm going to leave these out so I can play with them in just a moment. And originally I did this one with Gorgeous Grape and Blackberry Bliss, and that was for the second layout, but it didn't quite work with the colours, and I've used Mossy Meadow for the leaves. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do for this one is bring in crushed curry and do my floral elements in that colour, and I'm still going to use Mossy Meadow for the leaves. And with these florals, there are 3 different layers for the flowers and 2 different layers for the leaves, but it is achievable to get definition with this with just one colour for the actual flowers. So I'm just going to set this one aside because I do want to show you how to use that stencil on camera with you. You see this layout here I have actually finished off. And I'm not sure if you can tell, this is actually Blackberry Bliss cardstock. Later this month, in fact just next week, I think that all the 2-tone colours are going to be released. So I will be able to buy a whole packet of Blackberry Bliss with this shade on one side and the lighter shade on the reverse as 12 by 12 cardstock in a pack of 12. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I only had 2 sheets of this Blackberry Bliss because it's out of the Regal pack, and I wanted to use it for the photo mats. So I have gutted out this portion of the paper on both of these so that I had enough to do the actual photo mats on here. And with the pocket cards, what I've done, this one is actually a 6x4. So I've cut it into a 3x4 and then I've just cut 1-inch strips. And I've done that with 2 of the other pocket cards as well. But this was the only 6x4 one. These 2 here were 3x4. So I was able to get 3 1-inch strips out of each of those. And I decided that this one here actually matched quite well with these 2 pocket cards. But this color here sort of threw me a little bit. It's not listed on the page. I think it might be a really deep color of Cajun Craze. That was as close as what I could get to it. And these floral elements here, the flowers are actually done with just Cajun Craze. So I've used a very light hand for the first layer, a little bit of a heavier hand for the second layer, and then the heaviest hand of all for the third layer to get this definition. And then to tone it down just a little bit, I went in with a very light hand with Pecan Pie and went over the top of all of that. I put the first mask over top just to tone it down just a little bit and sort of make it match in with these color tones. But I'm really happy with how this layout has ended up. I did struggle with this one. I cut all the pieces up without really knowing what I was going to do with it, and I had to go away and think about it overnight and come back and finish this off. But this is a great way of extending these pocket cards to make them work on a 12x12 layout. And then with this pocket card here, this is the true size of them, a 3x4. That turns into be a partial photo mat. And I've used the stamp set as my title with You Make My Heart Smile, and I think I'm going to be stamping Mother's Day across here with an alphabet stamp because I'm thinking I'll put photos of upcoming Mother's Day with my mum on this page here because she just loves flowers and especially roses. So let's take this away and get on with the actual practical part of the demonstration for this video. I have a piece of white willow cardstock that I've trimmed to 5 inches. It's 12 inches in length. And I'm just going to make sure that all of my stencils here are all in order. So I don't know if it's picking up on camera. There is a little number printed in the top left corner of each one. So I'm going to start with the first stencil. You can see this is quite open, and I purposely cut my cardstock to 5 inches wide because that's the same width as the actual stencil. Now, if you're not comfortable with holding this in place while you do your inking, you can adhere this with a piece of tape. But I think I should be right because I did all the other ones without doing that. Now I've got some crushed curry here. I'm just going to make sure that this stencil is all nicely lined up, and there is a little notch here, so you can always draw a little notch. If you want to use a larger piece of paper, just pretend this is a little bit bigger. Actually, I'll bring one in so you can see. You can put it on your paper like so. You can draw little guidelines around this, just on the corners and this little notch, so that you can line this mask or stencil up perfectly. I'm going to try and do this live on camera now. As I said before, I managed to do 4 of them without getting it all mixed up and without it moving. So I'm really hoping that will work for this video. You know, sometimes when you do things on camera, it doesn't actually work as well as what it did when you're not filming yourself. Right, so I've got this lined up. I am going to just tap lightly, and I'm going to use this mask just to tap off a little bit. And I'm just going to go in. I am using an extremely light hand here. I am hardly pressing at all. And I want to take some of that ink off because I want the biggest part that has the most inking on here to be my lightest layer. And then the one with the most definition, I'm going to have the most definition in the pattern. I'm going to be using that with a heavier hand. Now I can peel that back and see how that's going. I might just want to add a little bit more colour to these larger elements. But I'm hardly pressing the brush at all. I'm basically just running this over and letting the bristles, these bristles here, do all the work. So now I'm going to set that aside, and that's my first layer done. Then I'm going to pick up mask number 2. I'm going to make sure I've got this all nicely lined up. And I'm going to go in with a slightly heavier hand. So now I'm just putting a little bit more pressure onto the stencil. So you can see there's a little bit more color coming through. Now this might turn out to be a little bit too yellow for the layout that I'm thinking of doing. But I'm going to look at that before I do any of the last treatment. But you can see I've got great definition happening here with a difference between the two colors just by pressing a little bit heavier with my blending brush. So this is layer 2 for the flowers. Now I'm going to line up stencil 3. I love how they're all numbered, so I don't have to do any thinking at all. So now I'm going to go in with a heavier hand again. You can see that's much more color than what I was getting through before. I want to make sure I get the center of these little flowers here. And it doesn't take very long to do this. Now, I love this way of coloring. It is so much faster than using alcohol markers or watercolors or pencils. It's all basically done extremely quickly. Now, I can see my base layer here is not quite dark enough. I want to add a little bit more to that. So I'm just going to line this up again. I'm going to go back in with a little bit more color just to make these yellow roses and the other flowers stand out just a little bit more. Now it's always easier to add more color than it is to take it away. You can't take it away with this sort of thing. Once it's done, it's done. So let's have a look. They're a little bit darker now, and I'm liking how that's looking, but I'm going to bring in my page to see if I'm really happy with this result. And I'm thinking that they could be a little bit too yellow. I'm going to bring in the right side that's got this one here, and I know they're not the same flower, but that is a little bit too yellow. So I'm going to do a little bit of a treatment to this. I'm going to wipe this one off just a little bit. I'm going to use the first stencil. Take away my Cajun, no, what's this one? Crushed curry. I'm going to bring in pecan pie. And this was suggested to me by one of the ladies at Weekend Retreat, Michelle, who was there. I was trying to match the other layout with the Cajun Craze sort of colour, and it was just coming out a little bit too bright. So she suggested going over top of all of this with a very light hand with pecan pie. So I'm going to do that now just to tone down this yellow just a little bit. You can see I'm tapping off. I don't want to get a really strong brown look, but I'm going to bring this up so you can see the difference between this rose here. I don't want to move my mask, so I'm hoping you can see that. Between this rose here and this one there, it just gives a little bit more depth to this, which I'm really liking the look of. You don't want to have a really heavy hand with this because you're going to make everything look a bit too brown. So I'm just tapping off and bringing a little bit of that pecan pie in. I'm going to put some over that section there. And I like the tone of this much better than the bright yellow. And I think that's going to work a lot better than just using the crushed curry colour. So I think this suits the tone of the paper and this pocket card here. And bring out Mossy Meadow. And it's the same sort of principle as what I did with the florals, but the leaves only have 2 layers to them. So you can see one of them is a larger opening and one has more detail. So the first one I'm going to do is going to have the lighter hand to it. So I get a lighter tone of Mossy Meadow. I'm going to tap off again. I can always come back in and add a little bit more ink to my blending brush by picking it up from here. I think the Mossy Meadow is going to look really lovely with those yellow tones and the treatment of the pecan pie with it. Now you can see I've got my fingers spread quite wide on this so that I hold my mask nice and still. But as I said before, if you're not comfortable with doing this, you can put a little bit of tape here and tape here to try and hold everything together a little bit more steadily. And that looks really pretty. I love how the Mossy Meadow looks with that treated yellow colour, which is the crushed curry. Now I've got this lined up again. I'm going to go in with a bit of a heavier hand. I didn't tap my ink pad off. I haven't loaded it up a whole lot. just enough to give me a bit of colour so that I can go back in with a darker hue and spread that out just a little bit more across there. And I love how that looks. I have had this set for quite some time. I saw that Stampin' Up posted something using this with gorgeous purples and a scrapbook layout on their Instagram page. And I really loved how the stencil worked and what it achieved with all these gorgeous layers. So I just had to go off and buy it, but I've had that sitting there for quite some time and I've only just used it. I will put a link to everything that I have used in the comments below so that you can check them out if you like what you've seen today. I'm going to create another one of these. So I've got options because what I've done for this layout here, this is a full one on this side. On the other side, this is actually being cut apart. So I've only stenciled up 2 of these floral elements, but I've cut one apart in what I thought was a bit of a natural area to do it. So after this was die cut, I went in through this section here with my scissors and I cut this section apart so that this one here would be a different floral element to put on a page. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I just showed you, but you don't need to watch that all over again. Before I put the layer of pecan pie over top, I just wanted to show you the difference so that you can see it on this sheet here. This one I've just inked up exactly the same way I did with all the crushed curry, the yellow tone, but this has the pecan pie lightly blended over top. This one doesn't have the pecan pie. So if you want to add a little bit of extra depth to especially an orange or a yellow flower, pecan pie with a very light hand is a really good choice for that. So I'm just going to finish this one off now before I bring in the other projects. So I'm fussing around quite a bit with these pages. It's taking me a few days to work out what to add to them. And what I'm thinking of doing is bringing in some of this gold twine just to put in behind here, just to dress them up a little bit. And I've also decided to go ahead and make a third layout with these Memories and More cards. And I'm going to do some more stenciling on that live on camera with you, just so you can see what I'm doing. But I'm just finding that I need to add a few little more elements to these florals, and I've got a couple of pieces left over, but I think what I'm going to do is introduce those to the cards. I did try putting one of these in under here, but I just felt like with this card here, it was just a little bit too much maybe to add another floral element. I'm not too sure. Sometimes when I'm not sure, I find I'm better off just leaving it out. But I think that's just making this little corner look a little bit too busy. And I have trimmed those 2 full pieces down quite a bit to create one larger section here with these 2 elements. And then with the trim pieces, I've added those here and I've got some little leftover pieces. But I do know that I want to add some of the dies to this. So there are some leaves in this. So I'm going to die cut some of those and tuck them around. And this is just going to add a little bit more to these floral elements, and I think it's going to be really good with the addition of the gold thread. And I did add those little leaves in to this first one here, and I think I pointed them out to you. I can't remember. It's been a couple of days. I've had this sitting on my desk for a while. I'm also thinking that this gold thread might work well on this layout as well, but I think this might add just that little extra touch that these pages need to dress them up a little bit more. So I'm going to take these ones away. So I'm going to get 6 double page spreads out of half a pack of these Memories and More cards. And the reason why I'm working with the half pack is because we gave all the ladies half a pack for weekend retreat as one of their gifts. Sometimes when making projects and you're making a series of projects, I go through and make the foundation layouts first, and then I start adding additional things to them. Now, what I've done is the same sort of cutting here for a base. This is actually mist cardstock, which is very, very close to the new In Colour Cloud, which is a new colour that's being released very, very soon, 6th of May. But I don't have all of that cardstock yet in 12 by 12 pieces. Now, I was trying to decide whether or not I use the dark side of mist or the light side, and this is where the similarity to Cloud is coming in. I do have a sheet of it in A4 cardstock. You can see it's in the same sort of colour family, so that will work really well with this Memories and More paper. This is an A4 cardstock, so it's a little bit thicker and it's not two-toned, but mist is a very close option for this. And I think I'm going to use the lighter side of mist as the photo mats here, but I wanted to show you the base of this. So basically with the cards that I've got, as I destroy everything that I've just done, and I forgot to take photos, so I'm hoping I can remember how I had everything placed. You can see I've got one full 6x4 here. The other side of this is a grid pattern, and I just found that trying to use these as a card onto a 12x12 that it actually worked better for me to use the 6x4 with this gorgeous pretty paper here. So all of these pages would work really well for Mother's Day layouts or going to a special garden if you go to the Botanic Gardens or something like that. Now I have cut these cards up because originally I was going to use these elements as my pieces to decorate, but when I turned the cards over, I don't particularly love how that looks up against that. And the other cards that sort of matched these colors have this very vibrant design on that side, but when I put this one with it, it sort of didn't go together. So I am just using basically one full card and a trimmed down card, because what I've done is trimmed the lengthways of these off so that I've got these strips here to use as anchoring points for my photo mats. And I might use this as a little element on there for a little bit of journaling, and I can put the place and the date on here. Now, when I was looking at this, I thought that I would need to add a little bit more to the base of it, just to dress it up a little bit. Now, the stencil that creates this is absolutely beautiful, but I don't want to put more of these large flowers in there. So I'm going to bring out something that I've had for quite some time, but I haven't actually used them anywhere. And this is the linked together decorative masks. You can get a stamp set and a die set that sort of coordinates with this. But the stencils, so most of the video today with the techniques that I'm showing you are all about the stenciling that I'm going to do. So these ones here will all lay it up to give a beautiful lattice type background. But I have decided that I am just going to use this one here. Now there are 5 masks or stencils with this, and I like this one here with the dots in the background. I think that's going to create a nice soft area for these flower elements to sit. And you can see it's exactly the same system as what I showed you when I was stenciling the floral elements here. Everything is numbered, and you can mix and match these ones. This one here, you need to use all 5 of them to build up the design for the florals and the leaves. But this one you can use as standalone products, or you can combine 2 pieces together, 3 pieces together, or all 5 if you want to. There's a lot of flexibility. So what I'm going to do is a little bit of stenciling up in this corner here, down in this one here, and over here as well, just with this stencil. And I think it's going to look quite nice behind these floral elements. I'm not going to use a heavy hand at all with this. I'm going to use a fairly light hand. I'm going to bring in my blending brush and my Pretty in Pink ink. And I'm just going to move these out of the way a little bit. And I want them to be sort of randomly in this area here, but I don't want to get any ink on these sections. So to mask these areas off, I'm just going to use some Post-it notes and attach those up in this area here, up against where my white is. I just want to make sure I don't go over this edge onto my coloured cardstock. Even though I'm going to use a very light hand, it probably won't be seen if I do go over just a little bit, but I do want to look like these are going off to the edge. Now I could line it up so that it is perfectly into this corner here, but I want a bit of a more organic feel to this with it on an angle slightly. So I've got my Pretty in Pink ink. I have rubbed quite a bit of that off. And then I'm going to go in because I just want a very light touching of this. That might be a bit too light. I can peel this back and have a look. You can see that is building up nicely. So what I'm going to do now is try and line this up to match so I can keep going across this section here. In hindsight, I should have put my stencil this way so that I could have extended it. I'll remember that for the other pages. I think I've lined that up fairly well. I'm going to rub quite a bit of this ink off, and I'm just going to go a little bit more down into this section here. Have a look at my progress as I'm going. And then I'm just going to put this floral element here, and you can see how that's giving just a little bit of a grounding place. for that floral element to sit. I might need to just add a little bit more down this side and move this post-it note to here. And just generally try to line this up again. I'm just going to concentrate in this area here. So once again, inking this up and rubbing it off quite a bit and just putting a little bit of ink into this area. And I really like the softness of that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the left page as well and adhere these elements down. And then I will be back with the finishing touches of all of the elements, plus a couple of cards to share with you that I've used from the leftover cards. I've got this layout finished and I've decided just to put the inside section of this 6x4 card here as my title piece, or I might just use this spot for some journaling. The other option that I have, because I haven't actually printed photos for this layout yet, is to print a 4x3 photo and put it in the top section of here and then use the bottom section here for journaling. There's also room to put flip flaps if I want to add additional photos, and that means I've got more real estate to put some journaling if I want to do that and just have photos all on the layout here. I love how this has turned out with the stenciling behind these floral elements. I think that really gives them a place to sit, because when I was starting with this layout, as you saw, it was quite sparse with what was on there with the minimal additions of these memories and more cards. I'm going to go through the rest of the layouts and some cards that I've made with the remaining pieces. I've used the gold twisted thread. This is on last chance, so I've ordered another one of these because there isn't really anything there that I think that I can use in its place, and I love how that adds just that right amount of texture and a little bit of sparkle to these layouts. I've actually used different dots throughout, so I'll just run through those as I go through the layouts here. This one I've used the party dots, which goes with the wildflower birthday or set. I like the pinks and the blues in this, so I've used those on this one. And for the other layout, and I'm going to mention something about these additional leaf elements as I go through as well. You can see that this gold twisted thread looks really gorgeous on here. And the dots that I've used for this one are the earth tone shimmer gems. I have just used these ones down here, a fairly neutral sort of palette for this. And the addition of these leaves, if I had actually adhered them in, I'm just going to do this one now. I must have tucked that there just for placement. This is from this same Layers of Beauty set. So this one, as I mentioned before, you get 5 stencils, you get all the stamp images, and you get a lot of dies with this as well if you buy the entire bundle, but it is of course available separately. I've gone through and die cut these 4 leaves here, and I've used garden green. Now Mossy Meadow is listed in the coordinating colours for these memories and more cards, but I don't have Mossy Meadow available to me in an entire pack of 12 by 12 at the moment. I can only purchase that in a pack with 2 sheets in it, with 12 by 12 in the Regals assortment. So I decided to use Garden Green, which is a 2-tone cardstock, and it's available in a 12 pack. I'm getting very excited. 6th of May is coming very soon, and I'm hoping that more colours will be available in the 2 tones with the release of the new annual catalogue. I'm just going to flip this one over. I think I talked about this earlier on, but that's the Garden Green True colour. I really like the reverse side of this for a more subdued, subtle look, and that's what I've used for all the leaf elements on all my floral clusters. And I've just tucked various ones of those around these elements here just to add a little bit more depth to this cluster, which is what this gold twisted thread is doing as well. Now, all I basically do, and my good friend Julie Carrier showed me how to do this a long time ago on one of the videos. Basically, you just wrap it around your fingers like this and you sort of roll it together. You pull on the little threads here to get various lengths of the loops, and then you get a glue dot, and I've got some large glue dots, and just adhere this section here to the glue dot and roll it over, and that way you have this all secured nice and together. You of course snip this piece off, and you've got, depending on how many times you've wound it around your fingers, that is all nice and secure. It's not going to come apart like this once you start to move it. So using a glue dot on that little section that's together holds everything in place. But just remember to pull these threads on the outside so that not all the loops are the same size. And then you can just adhere your little glue dot down in there just to keep it all together, ready to place underneath your cluster element or wherever you're using it for. I've actually used this on the cards as well that I'm going to show you, just to add a nice touch to them. And I always cut just a little slit in the top or the bottom section of the spool here, just to keep it from unthreading. So I'm going to go to the first layout that I started showing you. I went back with that and I've put that gold thread on here as well. And I love how this looks on the layouts on all three, even though they're totally different colorways, from a green base, the mist base, which is very close to cloud cover, which is coming very soon, and this one here, which is blueberry bliss. The gold all works beautifully with them, and using the stencils and just this one set here, layers of beauty, I think just brings everything together for this series of 3 pages. The dots that I've used with this one are also the earth tone shimmer gems. I could have used some gold ones, but I quite like the neutral look of these ones here that I put on the pages. So I'm just going to bring in the couple of cards that I've made. So this is with the remaining cards that were left over from the Memories and More pack. This one here is actually the reverse side of this, so it's a journaling piece. I can slip this as a little journaling note in any page that I want to. I didn't mind cutting this section away from the journal card. These are really great journal spots, but now it's going to be able to be used on a variety of pages, not just a floral page. So that's just those 3 panels popped up on dimensionals. You can see the sentiment here is from Greetings for All Mix and Match ephemera pack. I love these for quick sentiments, and I used one of the white sheets and I brought in my blending brush and just went over the top of that with Mossy Meadow just to tie it in a little bit more. I've got those same leaves cut out of garden green and the same gold thread here. This one was a little bit inspired by the website from Stampin' Up. They have one very similar to this, just with sections. So I cut this card down. I had 2 extra ones of those. As I said, I've just worked with half a pack for what I've shown you today. So I've cut that down into the edges, and then this is one of the 3x4 cards, and I've just trimmed 2 of those down to match that size. Finished it off with some of the gold open weave trim, and this little sentiment here is actually from the Beautiful Butterflies set. I wanted something nice and small to go on this little tab here, so that's just that for you there. And this piece here has stitching all the way around it, and it's this little die here. So I wanted a thank you, but I didn't quite have one small enough, so I thought for you would work really well there. And this is the larger version of this card. This one hasn't been trimmed at all. I had a piece of garden green left over, and I had some of the crushed curry yellow florals that I had stenciled. I had those left over from the layout, so I thought I would just use them on here. The gold thread and another white sentiment. I've gone a bit heavier handed with this one, with the Mossy Meadow, just to deepen it up a bit. And these card bases are something that I have had in my stash for quite some time, that I bought from a craft fair years and years ago, and I really love this brown colour and the depth of them with these colour tones for these pieces that I've put on top. So I do have a couple of pieces left over. So if you're watching and you were there for the weekend retreat, I've finished off all the layouts here, so hopefully this will give you some inspiration on what to do with these cards that you got. You can make a very simple square card here and put one of these sentiments on here from that same Greetings for All Mix and Match ephemera pack. I think everybody should have this in their collection just to put a quick card together. And this one, I could just put a white sentiment on there, but you could definitely dress this one up. You could cut this one into panels if you wanted to and replicate this design. But this one, when I turn that over, I've got more of that journal spot here, which is what I showed you, is from the edge of that. So you can separate these out. You can mix and match this sort of thing in and create more variety to your panels. You can even put one panel like this and trim this down and have this as a big panel and just have 2 panels going across the cards. Just cutting things into rectangles and squares doesn't have to make for a boring card. You can dress these up like I have done here. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will put this video into a playlist where I've used other pocket style cards, and I'll have a link to that at the end of this video and in the description below if you want to check that out for some inspiration for 12 by 12 scrapbooking with pocket style cards, not just using them in pocket style pages. I hope to see you all next time. Happy crafting, everyone, and bye for now.